Howdy. Welcome to the morning keynote. My name is Jory Prum. I am a recording engineer. I have a studio in San Francisco called Studio Jory and do a lot of recording for games. And I brought with me a collection of interesting people. So we have I'll introduce everyone and then we'll get underway. So Eric Parsons is with Telltale Games, and he is a cinematic director and was responsible for episode 3 of The Walking Dead. Dave Fenoy is an actor. He was the person responsible for the role of Lee Everett, and has also been in many other games such as StarCraft and Warcraft and many things. Nikki Rapp is also a voice actor. She was Lily in the game. She has a corner on the market for characters named Lily. She was also Willy in Psychonauts, and was also Morgan Le Fay in Monkey Island, and was many of the child voices in The Sims, and now directs the voice for The Sims as well. So, we're going to be rather informal for the most part, and kind of go through and tell you about the voice production and kind of the leading into the voice production of The Walking Dead. And then we'll do a little bit of talking with the actors and finish up with some sound stuff, and then we'll do Q&A. So, I'm going to give it to Eric.
All right. Well, first of all, I'd like to say a huge thank you to Nordic for inviting us to be here. It's been an incredible experience, and thank you everyone for showing up. I hope training orders are not too bad this morning. So before Jory talks about kind of the process of the dialogue recording, kind of nuts and bolts, and Nikki Dave talk about what the process of bringing these characters to life is like, I'd like to talk a little bit about the process it was to make The Walking Dead in the way that we did. Because our character performances are particularly important to the experience of this game. So I just kind of like to talk about why that's so important to us. So, what is a Telltale game? Well, I guess what it is.
We decided we're going to let the audience choose the path of the keynote today.
Okay, I'm all set. Okay. I see why those are so stressful. Okay. Well, actually, it's not that hard. It's right there in the name. We're not that clever. It's a game that tells a tale. So at Telltale, we make games whose main focus is on characters and on telling a story. We don't have incredibly deep mechanics and systems. We will probably never have cutting-edge graphics. But we focus on story and we focus on characters. Everything starts from there and follows that lead. So story, character, priority, everything else is in service of that. The question that we often find ourselves asking is, how do you play a story? I don't know, maybe that doesn't sound like that novel or innovative of an idea, but it's a question that we ask almost exclusively, and I feel like that is a little bit more unique. So, Walking Dead is an adventure game, sort of. Most of the games that Telltale has created share a lot of common DNA with classic point-and-click adventures. We definitely owe a lot to those games. But The Walking Dead moved farther away from that core than really anything we've made today. So why is that? How did we get to what we ended up releasing? Well, early in the process, we started by considering every type of interaction, every gameplay style that we've used in the past. Okay, I put poker up there. I don't think anybody actually considered playing poker against zombies. Season 2. Let's wait.
Does it end? What's coming next?
Spoilers. Anyway, ultimately we found ourselves stripping most of that away. And we were left with a game that those choices where you know that Clementine will remember what you said, or it's a horrible situation with no right answer, and the little timer bar is ticking down, and you have to make a call about who lives and who dies. Those are the things that are the heart of the gameplay in Walking Dead. And along with those choices, it's really important to us that the choices never have a black or white or a right or wrong answer. The game keeps track of a ton of choices. You can call back things from 3 episodes ago. It tracks things like Kenny is now mad at you because you didn't agree with him in that argument. But it doesn't have any sense of these are the right choices you made, these are the wrong choices you made. That's just not something that we have a notion of in the game. And that was very deliberate. We never wanted the game to feel like it was telling you picked the bad, you did the wrong thing. And I know that might sound weird because well, my character just died, obviously I picked the wrong thing. But it is right and wrong, or bad choice in the sense of there was a better way to have done it. And we instead wanted to give you these terrible situations that you had to make a choice. And the game would take your response and say, okay, that's your choice, and not pass any judgment. And it's worth addressing that the choices players make don't necessarily have big, sweeping effects on the story. That's a criticism that we've received. I made a game about choice that, I couldn't save that character's life. I couldn't shoot that character when they were really pissing me off. How can you call this a game about choice? And that's fair. Part of that is the realities of production. Anytime we allow the player to make a choice, that's content inevitable. And any developer knows that the amount of stuff you want to build is always more than the amount of time and money you have to build it. The other part of it is that there's a certain story that we're trying to tell. It comes back to that, how do you play a story question. If you imagine a spectrum where on one end you have TV shows or films or novels or anything like that, it's a linear narrative that has an author or a team of creators that have created a story and they present it to an audience, and the audience views that work and takes whatever they will away from it. Say on the other end of the spectrum you have like a sandbox game that maybe doesn't have a big central story, at least not in the moment sense, but it has a lot of systems that let the player experience things and kind of create their own meaning and find their own stories. So we're trying to create something that's somewhere in between those two, where we as developers have a story that we're trying to tell them, and we want the players to experience that. But we also want the players to feel like they share a certain amount of ownership in the story, and that they're part of telling the story. Almost like they're the last developer that gets to have a say in how the story plays out. So the story still moves in the same locations. Certain characters still die. Certain characters always get shockingly shot at point blank range right in front of your face. There's nothing you can do to stop it, no matter how many times you replay the scene. Sorry, I'm trying to avoid spoilers. I might have just been too vague. Maybe you know what I mean. It's your fault. We didn't want to do it. But it's the emotional impact of those choices and making the player ask, well, why did I make that decision? Or talking to your friends after and like, oh, I chose this, you chose that? Why did you choose that? What? What's wrong with you? Oh, what? Yeah, those kind of conversations. And exactly. I thought I knew. And the way that other characters in the game react to your choices. And these are the things that make up the real interactive meat of The Walking Dead. And the real reason that these choices characters and the story inform the game design to such a large degree that effectively they are the game design. And that to me feels like something that's kind of new and kind of innovative. And so because the characters are such an integral part of what we're making, going so far as to say that the meaningful interaction of character interaction, and to place all that weight of the game's appeal on the shoulders of our characters, you can understand why the casting process and the recording process of bringing these characters to life is so critical to us. If our characters aren't written well, if our stories aren't told in a believable way, and if our characters don't feel like real people, then we simply won't have a game anymore. So with that, I'll go to the slide of Lily and me, which means it's time to hear from Lily and me.
So I apologize, we are going to do a tiny bit of spoiling. So if you haven't played the game, I apologize, but it's an early spoiler. But,
I never played the game. It's a whole.
it's just, I generally try to avoid spoilers. So anyway, so I figured we start a little bit of example of Lily and me in an intense scene, and talk about the acting.
I'll bring that down, Jordan!
Dad, you can't! Easy! Dad? No! Dad, come on! Dad! God, he stopped breathing. I think he's had a heart attack.
Is he dead?
He's not dead! Somebody help me!
If he's dead,
He's not dead!
what has to happen? Think about it. You saw that poor bastard in the motel. How fast he turned.
What are you saying?
Lily, I'm sorry. I truly am. But in a few minutes, we're going to be stuck in a locked room with a 6'4", 300-pound, seriously pissed off dead guy.
Fuck you! We can bring him back! Leave!
More than later. But right now, we have to keep him from coming back.
No! God damn it, Kenny! He's not dead!
Lily can still save him. I wish he could. Believe me, I do. But that man is dead. You both know what happens next. Kenny, listen, folks. Think I forgot about what you said at the drugstore. When you all thought Duck was big. Well, I'm just doing the same thing. Except Duck wasn't big. And we know this guy's not going to make it. Remember what Ben said. Gotta destroy the brain. Come on, Lee. You can't be in the middle on this one. You gotta have my back this time.
God damn it, Lee! I need you! Please help me! Come on, Dad. Come on.
Lee! Is he breathing at all?
No! No, I don't think so!
Okay, let me take over. Keep checking his pulse. Are you stupid? He's gonna turn! You're putting all of us at risk, you son of a bitch! You're fucking worse than Flea.
No!
What the fuck? I'm so sorry. It had to be done. You don't know that! I do, Lee. And so are you. I was counting on you, man. I'm sorry. I know.
Don't you fucking touch me!
So Nikki, how do you prepare for a role like this? Like actual practical experience?
Preparing for Lily was something as a character I've never gone to such depths before, to like the writing, and it took me there, like but I mean, I've always played really cute characters, you know.
I can't imagine why.
I just played a squirrel before I came here. No, it's a very cute little squirrel who sang songs and stuff. So for Lily, I had to dig really deep, and it was amazing. Like, you just get in there. The writing is so good that you just, every time I went for a session, I just mentally had to prepare myself for what is Lily going to do now, you know, and that scene, it just, every time I watch it, I almost want to start crying again, because doing that scene and going home that day, and it took me a few hours to recover from what happened in that scene. And
Did you draw on experiences from your past?
yes, and I mean, I lost my father about 5 years ago, so it just makes you think, you know, obviously not in the same way, but, you know, protecting your father, protecting someone you love, and I mean, Larry, he's kind of an ass, but still he's your dad, you know?
It's kind of fun that it's Terry McGovern who plays Larry, and he's a guy who's been doing voice acting for a really long time. He's Launchpad McQuack and Telltale. He was on the 18 Live.
He was Star Wars. He was a voice actor when I started being a voice actor.
Right, so like it's funny because he's actually a really, really cool guy in person. And he always ends up playing these really jerky characters. And in this case, it's kind of funny because he's your father. So, but he's kind of a fatherly role in the voice acting community as well. And not even just in the Bay Area, pretty much across the board. How do you prepare for the role? Like, most people I think know, or many people I think know, that Dave actually was the second person who was cast for lead. We recorded an entire episode with Lee before we realized that guy's not quite working. It's not quite matching the character design. I went all the way back to auditioning again, and Dave came in and we re-recorded the whole thing, and it was so much better. It just fit the character. So, how did that process go?
You want to start with the auditioning process?
Yeah.
Okay, well, like most jobs, my agent sent me an audition for this character, Lee Everett, in the Walking Dead game, and I was a fan of the show, and I was familiar with the graphic novel. So I thought this would be very cool because it has become an iconic property, at least in the United States. I don't know how popular it is over here, but it's crazy popular in the States. So I was happy to get a shot at this. And one of the things they said that this was we wanted a very natural sound. This is just a regular guy in extraordinary circumstances. You're just talking to people, you're relating to people. You were not, I played a lot of heroes and dragons and wizards and blizzards and
Squirrels?
no squirrels. No squirrels. Wow, that'd be a funny sounding squirrel. But this was a character, they said he is a guy who had been a college professor who discovered his wife having an affair and killed her and her lover and is off to prison. And when the zombie apocalypse happens, and he's a broken man. He's somebody who his life has fallen apart, but the zombie apocalypse gives him an opportunity to redeem himself by taking care of this little girl. And I looked at, well, what are the things in my life that would help me feel that character? And I always felt like if I wasn't a voice actor, I'd probably be a history professor at college someplace. So that was kind of close. Protecting the little girl. I have a daughter, and I know how much I love her and want the best for her. So I drew upon that. And I felt like this guy was very similar to me as a human being. I think we've all done some things that we regret in life, as well as things that we're very proud of in life. And as an actor, that's what you have to get in touch with. So I did my best to do that.
What kind of training did you guys have to get into voice acting? How did you start voice acting?
Well, I went to a school in Sausalito near San Francisco. It's a voiceover school. But I graduated from drama school previously, and I had teachers that told me that at probably wasn't gonna get much work because of how my voice sounded. And then my dad actually heard Samantha Paris on the radio, and he said, you know, she has a voice like you. And so I started taking classes, and it was like, I just fell in love with it. I just knew that it was what I was supposed to be doing. It's like you get in that booth, and it's like, oh, it's magic.
Do you remember the first gig you booked?
Yeah, it was for this Nerf CD-ROM game, and the character's name was Mickey.
Because when I think of Nerf, I think of CDs.
Yeah, it was a CD-ROM.
Do you guys have Nerf stuff here? They're basically foam balls, and the idea is you don't get hurt if you get hit.
Yeah, it was some game you like shot the, I don't know. It was weird.
And you
Yeah.
guys?
It was a long, circuitous route. I was a child actor growing up in Cleveland, a stage actor. I was a theater major when I first went to college, but I was also playing music. After a couple of years in college, I had to find myself. So I quit and I went on the road as a musician. I was a singer-songwriter and toured around. As a matter of fact, I spent some time in Copenhagen about that time, playing guitar and singing on the streets of Copenhagen because my father was stationed here with the USDA. Went back, finished school in music, got married, had a kid, discovered that I was not going to grow up to be a rock and roll star after all, and went into the DJ business. I became a radio DJ, did mornings on the #1 station in San Francisco for a long time. It's no longer there, KSOL. But after a few years of that, I got tired of program directors being mad at me for saying really crazy stuff on the air and threatening to fire me. I said, well, maybe I should just do something else. And I discovered this thing called voiceover work. It was kind of a forest for the trees. You know, I almost didn't see it because it's so omnipresent. Everywhere you go, there's a voice. Turn on the TV, there's a voice telling you something. You turn on the radio, there's a voice telling you something. It was almost like you didn't even notice it. But a friend of mine mentioned that he was making more money doing that than being on the radio, and I thought, wow, maybe I could do that. And after a couple of years, it really sunk in, and I went to the same teacher, Samantha Paris, and took some classes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's crazy. I was one of her first students. I also took a lesson from Lucille Bliss. You might not know the name, but if you've ever watched The Smurfs, she was Smurfette.
There were a lot of females.
There was only one female Smurfette. That was a busy girl. And Lucille Bliss, she kind of, tapped me on the shoulder with her magic wand and said, I took a $50 lesson with her. And we read some copy and she said, oh, you don't need this, just go do it. And after some really bad demos and whatnot, I got a career started in San Francisco. The radio station fired everybody, all the air talent. I moved to LA and the rest is history.
So, what would you guys consider to be the most challenging role you've done? Including or not including Walking Dead?
Walking Dead definitely has been the most challenging, but being a sim is probably the most challenging because I've been a sim for 12 years, so I speak Simlish pretty well. But it's still, we do 6-hour recording sessions, so it's pretty grueling on your brain. By around 4 o'clock, you kind of feel like you're losing your mind. I say terrible words I don't mean to say.
Mostly in Swedish.
Maybe, I don't know, but that's probably the most challenging one.
It's, The Sims is recorded very differently than most games. We actually met working on The Sims in 2003.
Yeah.
Crazy life. And so just as an understanding, they look at a video, you have a female and male voice actor, and they basically speak or act somehow similar to go with the action. and they go back and forth between the male and the female until the director says, okay, we've got it, and the engineer can't stop laughing. And then you move on to the next one, and you do that for, well, when we did it, it was 8-hour days.
Yeah,
and
it's
it's
really
really
hard.
hard. Want to do some signals for us?
そうそう、僕は私に来ると、ロリポップが好き。
I'll have another beer.
I'll wait for a grown person to make a living.
I can't think of a better way.
I tell you,
If I could act,
I think we have the best jobs in the world.
and artist, at least in acting, for sure.
Yeah.
It's a great job. I absolutely love what I do, and if I didn't have to pay bills, I might do it for free. You were asking me. The most rewarding job, I have to say, in the gaming world for me, has been the Walking Dead game. It is the job that gave me the best opportunity to expand as an actor. On most games, you have a set of lines. These are your greeting lines. These are your attacking lines. These are your I've been hurt lines. And now you do a bunch of those, and maybe
Forgot that one, let's move on.
yeah, 200-300 lines, and you're out of there. And I know the first session of the Walking Dead game that it was very different because it was all dialogue. But your real question was, what was the toughest job?
Yeah, what was the most challenging?
A number of years ago, I was on one of the Lucas games, a pod racer game, and you know the pod racer in the Star Wars, okay. I was playing a pod racer. As a matter of fact, I played 3 pod racers, and it was a 5-hour session, and it was all in Huttese, the language of Java. On my script, I've got Huttese on this side, and then in English, what it is next to it. And the director outside the booth spoke Huttese.
It actually is a.
You think some of you are nerds? Oh no. This guy spoke Huttese. So he's telling me how to pronounce it before I read the line in Huttese. And because it's a pod racer game and I'm a racer racing, it's all shouted. So it takes 2 hours to get through the first character, and I'm shouting this stuff in Huttese, and this is really tough on your voice, and we finish that character goes, oh, great, now let's do it again, but this time with a Jamaican accent. So we get that one done, and he goes, oh, this is super, one more time, this time with a homeboy accent, so, and finish the session, the next day I couldn't talk.
Awesome. Funny enough, that was probably the first project we worked on together, and we didn't know it, because I worked on sound design for that.
Wow. Small world.
Bizarre, yeah. Do you play the games that you guys are in, ever? Or sometimes? Or occasionally?
Sometimes I do, yeah.
Lots of Sims.
Play Psychonauts. Sims, I'm kind of a jerk. Like, I want to hear myself have a tantrum. So I basically got rid of the windows and sold the toilet or whatever. And there was one time, like, I don't know what happened, but the kid was getting ready to go to school. The mom was cooking. The kid goes to school. The kid comes home. The mom, there's like an urn on the kitchen floor. And then the kid really has a tantrum. So it's really actually therapeutic to be an adult and get to have tantrums like an 8-year-old.
I won't ask you for an example of that. How does it feel when the game comes together and you see the result? Because for those who don't know, we record 1 actor at a time, except for The Sims, which records 2 actors, but they don't actually act together, it's just depending on the character gender. We record 1 actor at a time, 1 line at a time, and I'll show you some examples of that in a moment. So they actually never meet in the studio, ever. They might meet between sessions, but I'm not involved with that.
Kind of to answer the question you asked earlier, do I play? Well, first, damn you for asking that in front of a whole gaming community.
Sorry, it's a question that they probably are going to ask. If I don't ask, they're going to ask.
I'm on so bad that it's just not satisfying for me. But I love being a voice on the game. I love doing the voice acting. So no.
See, if you didn't want to answer, you could have actually just very slyly let Nikki answer my question.
Well, you know, it's all about truth, man.
How do you feel about it once it comes all together?
Oh!
And you see the whole
Yeah,
thing?
I knew that there was a reason that tied in. It's the jet lag. It's the jet lag. It's very satisfying because, as you mentioned, in the voiceover world, if you're doing animation, if you're doing cartoons, you're working with an ensemble cast. But with games, you are working by yourself. It's just your lines and you and the director and the sound recordist, occasionally the head of the company. But it's you by yourself, and all your motivation has to come from someplace else. There's no bouncing off of the other actors. So a lot of times you feel like, I think I did okay, but I really don't know how this is going to play in the game. So when you actually do see it, and the graphics are there, and the interaction between the other characters, it's like, oh yeah, it did come together. Ah, great, I love this. And especially with Walking Dead, when it really is about the acting and the relationships and the characters and the story.
Okay, so what is the part of the game development that's the biggest mystery to you? Since you guys are really kind of at the front end of the process, once the script exists, we record the dialogue, and you come in and record all that stuff, and then you go away, and all of a sudden there's this magical thing that shows up on shelves or
It is magic, right?
So what part of from the point you leave the studio to it shows up on YouTube?
Everything else.
I mean, since I've been working on The Sims, since directing The Sims, like I'm learning more like from the editors and just everyone who works on the game, and I'm realizing like the voice is just, I mean, we're important, but it's like it's tiny. There's like so much else going on. People spend hours and hours and hours getting to sleep. You know, get sick, can't have to keep doing it, and I'm in awe of it now, like learning that side of it.
So we can quote you for that during the next union discussion.
I'm glad I'm doing something from the other side now. It's like when you do theater and you work backstage and you start to appreciate more. It's really important, I think, actually.
So my last question for you guys: do people recognize you for things you've done when you run into somebody? Dave's also the voice of Hulu.com. If you know the on-demand video streaming service in the United States. Do people ever recognize you by your voices, or hey, I've seen you in some documentary, or you look like a squirrel I heard sometime?
I was at dinner one time on a date, and at Olive Garden, which isn't real Italian, but hey. That's a joke. If you were in America, you would have laughed. Jeez. Culturally defined. Actually, I have to say, I am so impressed with how well everybody speaks English, and if only I could speak just a little bit of Swedish, or Danish, or Norwegian, or Finnish, or something.
Your Norwegian or your Swedish was
Don't
pretty
speak
interesting
English.
last night.
But I'm sitting at dinner, I'm on a date, and not even our waiter keeps going by and looking. And I'm wondering, why is this waiter checking us out? You know, I know she's pretty, but damn. And he finally stops and he goes, dude, you got a pretty good voice, man. He goes, you're the Hulu guy, aren't you? So I said, man, you're watching a whole lot of Hulu. And now, The Walking Dead is a gift that keeps on giving. After doing this for 23 years and being in 60, 70 games, I don't know how many exactly, it's like becoming an overnight sensation. But I'm getting the look back now. Oh, I guess he has been doing a lot of work. But people actually recognize me now because they've seen pictures of me or they've been at some awards ceremony or something. So that's kind of
So
interesting.
they recognize your Etsys.
So that's kind of nice.
So as I was mentioning, we record one line of dialogue at a time, which is kind of an interesting process. Thought I'd tell you a little bit about that because it's kind of hard to transform you into the recording studio. So I brought one of the director's notes and scripts to get an idea of what it looks like. This is from the example I showed for Lily's script. So there's a lot of different stuff on here. I'll walk you through how that works. So first off, we have file numbers. This actually relates to the Pro Tools recording number when I'm running the engineering of the session. So those numbers start at 001 and go all the way through however many lines of dialogue we have on that particular script. Then we have the file names, which are incredibly easy to read, as you can see. Nobody would ever make a mistake hand typing those. 9-digit numbers are my favorite. Actually, I really like Telltale's naming convention because it's pretty easy to work with. Then another thing on the script is the environment. So because adventure games seem to be very location-based, we can actually record per location. So we do each location or environment one at a time. We record all the dialogue for that particular location. Helps keep the context in check. Then we have some of the context. So these notes that are in square brackets are written by the game writers who want to pass along information to us in the recording studio so we have an idea of what's actually happening. So things like frantically trying to save her father from a heart attack is pretty useful context. And then we have the actual line of dialogue. My favorite being, "Fuck you, we can bring him back, CPR lead." Or, "No." I love the subtitles in the game when it's playing. The O's come out and then the exclamation points as it's playing out. There's also feeders whenever we have them. I know these are a little light and hard to see, but so these would be theoretically the lines that feed whatever line the actor is supposed to say. And quite often the director will read them or act them to the actor. Consequently, some of our actors feel like every role in the game should be played by the director because that's what they heard for every character. And then we have the actual selects. So we keep track of this by letter because it's a little easier to always have one type of naming convention for one thing and another for another. So file 140, we wanted take last. And you can see there's sometimes little notes like keep the crying. That's not keep crying when you're editing. That's exactly. The editor's going to cry whether we tell them to or not. So you can see the whole thing comes together into one big script. And often these scripts are hundreds of pages. We generally we like to have a limited amount of information on the screen. So how this translates into an actual recording file is you get a waveform that looks like this. So this is a raw take for file 139 of that session where we have the line is something wrong. And you can see the A, B, C, D, E takes. Sometimes it's easier to just mark last or last -1. Oftentimes when we're recording, the really good actors, you can see A, B, C, D, E. I didn't even modify this at all. There's no talking in between. It's really easy to identify where are the takes. Some of the lesser good actors, there might be talking and stuff. I have little tricks for getting rid of that. Share a little tip. It's one of these, whoa moments in the studio. We figured out if we used a gain change of -60 dB as a destructive gain change, I can just select something while we're recording and wait until we stop and hit process, and suddenly it's gone. It's wonderful. So I'm going to play you a little bit of dialogue. In that scenario, as you see all the different lines are one at a time, and we have actors one day versus another, it might be a week, even 2 weeks between the actors, but we still have to make sure the consistency is right, and the director is really good at that. The director is doing Nessie from Bay Area Sound most of the time, and sometimes it's Jared Emerson Johnson. They're both outstanding. So you can hear, I'm going to play some examples of a Lily line that feeds, a Clown line that feeds, and the Lee lines that are the options that go along with it.
Did you kill it?
I think something else did. Before me, I think.
how the files pretty much came out. There was not much done. These were the edited but not even mastered files, so pretty straight ahead. And I don't think we'd even met Melissa at that time yet.
We didn't meet until episode 3 or 4.
Yeah. So most of the actors never even met. We actually had a really fun time. We got together and got Thai food, which was fun. That's a fair amount of the cast, not quite everyone, but that was a pretty cool thing. I'm going to show you a little bit of stuff separately. So I brought some of the raw dialogue. So here's that screen. So that's that Lily line I played for you before.
Is something wrong?
So we have all these alternates. So we can always go back and find the alts whenever we need them because they're all in one file.
Is something wrong? Is something wrong? Is something wrong? Is something wrong?
So you get lots of different versions. Sometimes the screens are really fun too. So you can see there might be little bits of talking.
No! No!
And this is the one I think she reacted with when I said, you're going to be on stage in front of a lot of people.
No!
So I also brought a few bloopers. Now, recording a drama, we don't come up with a lot of bloopers, not like when we record Sam and Max and William Caston goes. I can't even share with you half the bloopers he does. They're awesome. I promise you wish you were in the recording studio for some of them. But Dave occasionally gives us some gems, so I brought a few of those.
Just because you're fighting zombies doesn't mean that life doesn't go on.
Sometimes he ad-libs on the end of the line, so you see if you can identify the ad-lib.
No power, no TV, no keeping up with the Kardashians.
I think the lawyer made us take that out. Sometimes people stumble over words, and that can be really fun.
Just confused, you know? Didn't want to trouble any trouble. I'm like, hey, I'm in trouble, no trouble. I'm going to use that in the ring. Hey, baby, no trouble, no trouble. Sitting outside, baby, no trouble, no trouble.
And then, of course, there's always tongue twisters. But it's funny, there's this sweet spot in dialogue recording and performance where when we have about, say, 6 to 10 words in the line, it just flows. If there's about 15 to 25, it gets really hard, especially if it's longer paragraphs. When it's one word, forget it. Those are the hardest. What is always the hardest line, and it's usually like the first line of the day. Well, actually, it's usually the second line, because the first line is usually a screaming line of death, which we then say, okay, we'll say that at the end. But then the other really hard thing is when there are alliterations.
I don't need that anymore. I'm done digging up dead dogs for the day. Who wrote that? I'm done digging up dead dogs for the day. I'm done digging up dead dogs for the day. I'm done digging up dead dogs for the day. I'm done digging up dead dogs for the day. You get that so you can look?
And my last blooper is more of a little bit of fun. Sometimes the scripts come in so fast because the production schedule is really tight. And we're really, we often turn around dialogue we recorded today, tomorrow, sometimes today. I mean, it really depends on how much I don't want to sleep. So sometimes the scripts come in and somebody wrote something really quickly and it's not quite right. And you get something like this.
We stay quiet. We stay hidden. We find what we need and get the hell out before anyone even knows we're there. So everybody stay quiet, stay hidden, stay close together. Got it? So I want you to do what I just said. And do what I just said. And then do what I just said.
So I think we'll open it up to some questions and do we have additional additional mics for QA, or do we still need to? Yes, we have additional mic for Q&A. Feel free to ask any of us anything you want. If we can't answer it, we'll say, I'm sorry, I can't answer that. We can't talk about any future projects, so just know that in advance. But, yeah.
They're too hungover to ask anything.
Everybody's asleep. I'm just glad you didn't bring tomatoes. It's a good thing everything's closed really early in Sweden.
Hello? Yeah, great talk. And so you say that you never work with more than one actor at a time.
We generally avoid it.
Yeah, I've heard of other studios that do it differently, like Val, that they would record several actors at the same time in the studio to get like the interactions right. Do you ever find it useful to do that, and in what situations would you do it?
We generally try to avoid it for a number of reasons. I've worked on some projects that had ensemble recording, and what generally happens is you put actors together and they work off each other most of the time. It actually is, it's remarkable. And we don't want to stop that. The problem is sometimes we step on each other's lines, unintentionally, and we need to separate all those out into individual files. Second is, like I said, we are often turning around dialogue tomorrow that we recorded today, which means we have all kinds of automated systems in place for being able to get stuff named and edited before anybody has to deal with manual file naming and whatnot. But the biggest problem is actually pickups. So let's say we record two actors together, they start riffing off with one another, and it's actually really awesome. We put that in the game, everybody loves it, and then all of a sudden they decide, oh, this section, we need to change a few words for this character. Maybe it's just like they change the color of the shirt the character is wearing, and the guy says, oh, you had a red shirt on yesterday. Oh, we changed it to blue because red wasn't working. Oh, you had a blue shirt on yesterday. The problem is you have to bring both actors in to get that one line, because by themselves they never get that same vibe. And it's actually more akin, I call it kind of the analog synth problem. You never get the exact same patch on analog synth because all the knobs are just slightly different. When you bring two actors in again, they vibe differently the second time. And so you never get the same performance. And from my experience, it actually leads to the rest of the team going, oh, God, we had such a great performance before. What the hell, what are we going to do now? So we find that we keep a higher quality overall by not doing ensemble. It has happened on occasion, but I generally try to convince clients it's a bad idea. More questions?
Yeah, okay. How easy is it to remember your old roles that you played and the voices? Like, for instance, if I told one of you, can you do something from Dota 2? Like, how easy to remember those things?
I'm guessing somebody struck a chord there. So how easy is it for you to remember the role?
I've played a lot of characters. I'm 5 characters in Dota 2. I might be able to, but I can't guarantee it. Sometimes you'll kind of remember the name and well, that character was kind of, and you can go into it, but not always. Sometimes, a lot of times, if I'm going back to work on something I worked on a year ago or another, characters that are reprised. Sometimes I have to listen to the reference. Oh, what did I do? Oh, yeah, that's it. Okay, and then I can jump into it. But just off the top of my head, maybe not. Depends.
One of the actors we work with regularly is a guy named Robert Jackson, he's well known for being Mojo Jojo in the Powerpuff Girls and the voice on the phone and the screen. He has a remarkable memory for the characters he's done. He was, if any of you played Sam and Max, he was the time traveling mariachis. And he'll sometimes come in the studio and walk in the door and go, somebody say birthday! So, I mean, he remembers all his characters. It's actually kind of remarkable. Another question?
Dave, can you get a line in Hatties of the Jamaican fundraiser? Can you get a line of the Jamaican fundraiser?
He wants to tease the Jamaican accent.
Oh, man. Do you know how long ago that was?
That's so long ago. I was at Lucas still.
Yeah, that was the 90s.
That's so long ago LucasArts existed.
That was
Star Wars movies. Like, so, can you be he hasn't called me yet, so we'll talk another time. So, I think this is a common, don't always remember.
You know, when you do a lot of different characters, it's hard to just snap them back. A lot of times it's the words, it's the description, it's being in the studio with the same people, all kinds of different ways that you remember it. But standing here on the stage, or sitting here on the stage, some would come to me, some wouldn't.
Another question? Somebody raising a hand over here. I see a microphone heading towards him. We sound guys are really good at spotting mics.
I'm just interested to know if you guys use visual reference, concept art, or whether you don't, because we've had experience of using it and not using it, and it's an interesting, for us it's interesting when you get the performers to come up with their own visualizations in their minds, and it's also interesting when certain game designers and artists kind of enforce the visual image on performance, and I'd be interested to hear your guys' reactions to that.
When a big example is when I auditioned for Tales of Monkey Islands, I had no idea what Morgan Le Fay looked like at all. I just had the description of how she was, which I didn't think I could do, so I changed my audition a little bit. I was more of a fangirl to Guybrush, I think. But I didn't know what she looked like till I saw the game. I was like floored, because she was amazing. Like, she was really hot. So it was really cool to see that. And it's like sometimes you do have the art when you do your audition, sometimes you don't. But if there's a good description of the character and you just can kind of take your imagination from there, that's generally what happens for me anyway.
I like to see what the character looks like, but even more important is what's the character's motivation, what's the backstory on the character, how old is he, where is he from, what does he do, what's he afraid of, what does he want, who does he hate, who does he love, what's his personality. All of those things really are more important than seeing a picture of the character, but it does help. It just adds to, if it's a character and he's big and he's brawny and he's wearing armor and he's got a big axe, okay, well, it's probably going to sound like Mike Tyson. Probably going to sound like a big bad son of a gun.
Or Mike Tyson. With this little high ear.
So yeah, a picture is worth 1,000 words, but I'll take the 1,000 words too.
For the casting packs, we generally try to include a picture or more. We most often don't have very much artwork in the studio, but sometimes, like on The Walking Dead, on the second episode, I remember that was another episode. We were still figuring out how to make those games. The first episode took quite a long time. The second episode took a while, but it was a bit faster, mostly because we didn't have to recast the main character. But we actually, one of the directors, I think it was Dennis, brought in almost a storyboard of concept art that was really cool, and we had that in the studio for that whole episode. So we'd start off each session with a new character, going
just love that whole experience. We worked on it for 5 years. It was such a part of my life, and every other game I've done since then, it's like people are like, oh my god, you and Psychonauts, and I'm super honored to be in that game. But I guess one of the famous lines, I hope I can get my pitch up a little bit hoarse from last night. This is the line everybody always wants me to say. I went to Double Fine one day and had a little tour and everybody made me say it. So. Oh my god, let's make out!
I guess because it's been so successful, I think Lee Everett from The Walking Dead is probably my favorite character to have played. But you've heard him, and he sounds just like me. But I'm on a game called Bayonetta, and he's just cool, baby. Yeah, you go this time, baby. We'll watch it next time, because I'm coming for you.
Well, thank you so much for coming out for this. Really